politics, if you keep up with it, would have us thinking that seemingly we're all losing our minds and becoming further and further divided, further and further down the road that leads to destruction. I don't think this is the case, truly, and I don't think it has to be. But one of the biggest divisive topics today is climate change, global warming. It's very relevant to right now as I film this, on the aftermath of protests going on the aftermath of the Greta Thunberg speech at the UN, and honestly, global warming, climate catastrophe has been an interest of mine ever since my mother, who also is passionate about it, gave me books from a young age on the science of it all. From AOC, Alexandria Ocasio-Cortez, claiming that we have 12 years to live before extinction, Bill Nye claiming we have 12 years to live before global warming kills us, to Greta Thunberg, there's been an evolution of climate catastrophe narrative that is ebbing more and more every day towards becoming a fanatic religion. I see it so much in the advocates of this movement. They move and they speak and they behave with passionate fervor that you usually only see in the pulpit on Sunday of a Southern Baptist fire and brimstone preacher preaching about hell and the resurrection at the end times. I said in an earlier video on my YouTube that I think they've made a religion out of climate change, out of climate catastrophe, and it's a religion centered around not a god, but a goddess, and the goddess is Mother Earth. Eerily similar to a pagan religion, this new religion can become violent, can become obsessed, it could potentially demand sacrifices. I mean, all of that metaphorically. Unfortunately, they're becoming more literal. But here's the thing, if you listen to the language of this religion, you listen to the language of this religion's advocates, it is the language of psychosis. If you study psychology, clinical psychology, some of the great clinical psychologists of our times, in their work, they talk about a distinct language of psychosis, neurosis, and hysteria. People that have gone mad. And anytime the words crisis, breakdown, catastrophe, collapse, extinction, right? These types of words, anytime these types of words are being used, it's a reflection that the psyche is having a psychotic and neurotic breakdown. It's also the language of depression and anxiety. It's the language of catastrophizing. And that's everything that the language of global warming and climate catastrophe has become. I mean, climate catastrophe is one of the names of this very movement. Catastrophe, we're going to end. You heard Greta, if you watched the video, saying that we are moving towards a mass extinction and that we've stolen her childhood. And not only us, but global warming has somehow stolen her childhood. The language we hear used in this religion isn't the language of people with healthy minds, but the whole reason why we're even in this position in the first place. I think, and I don't think I stand alone on this, but I think if we have climate issues, which we do, I've seen the videos of people dumping trash into the ocean. I've seen the trash that we leave behind. I know that there's islands in the middle of the Atlantic Ocean that are islands of trash that you can literally walk on for miles. I understand this. These aren't issues of policy, of human interaction in their environment. It's an issue of morality. For someone to pull up a dump truck full of trash and pour it into the ocean, that's lazy and it's immoral. But it's so ironic, and I talked about this in my last video on this issue, with the religion of the Mother Goddess, that this religion is wanting to move and sometimes violently try to change the world to become moral in their facings towards Earth and Mother Earth, yet their whole movement originates from a place of amorality. Amorality, meaning immorality. Nature and Mother Nature herself are amoral, meaning there is no good and evil in nature. I talked about the lion hunting a gazelle. The lion doesn't kill that gazelle because it's bad and it's plotting. It kills it because it's hungry, and that's the circle of life. On top of that, to demand morality out of the rest of the world when it comes to how they treat the earth is also ironic, I realize now after the research I've done since that video, because we are the ones, and most of the people that demand climate change are the same people who stand by ideologies that got us in this place, got us in this position in the first place. And what I mean by that is, these are the same people that are scientific rationalists. Why do I pick on them? Scientific rationalistic minds are the ones who told us that ever since the Enlightenment, anything that couldn't be explained scientifically, we had no use of. I've talked about this in regards to meaning and value in your life, but now I'm going to come at it in an attempt to save the world around us. When we did that, when they took out, let's call it the magic in the air around us, with the scientific revolution, with the Enlightenment, they took out the value humankind found in the earth around us. They sterilized the earth. They broke it down to numbers and data, to scientific names, to a textbook. They took the magic out. They sanitized it, cleaned it up. No more were we gonna fear the forest, right? We know what's in the forest. Fauna. And what did it do? Look at the long-term consequences now. There's no regard for the forest. There's no regard for the earth. And you're surprised? You're the same ones who said there's no need for all that mumbo-jumbo mythic talk, that talk of imagination, that talk of faith, of seeing things you cannot see. And now, ironically, you're the ones claiming a necessity of faith in climate change, a necessity in faith of global warming action. And it is a call to faith, because you know what? In all honesty, look at the data. The further and further out we get, even beyond 5 years to 7 years, the ability to predict any type of positive change, it exponentially decreases its accuracy every year you get out further and further. So a lot of the actions that people are proposing are propositions of faith. Have faith in this idea, because there's really no data. Now, we can't predict the weather next week, let alone predict whether an action now, ecologically or with energy, will help save global warming in 50 years or even 12 years. It's a proposition of faith. That's what they're asking. That these are the same people that destroyed faith. These are the same people that destroyed the imagination. When doing so, they took out the value in the earth around us. They took out the value in the world, and they destroyed the world's soul. They sterilized the world, took out its soul, ripped it apart. If you don't believe me, stay with me. I'll explain. If you think about it, they took out the value in the little things, the tiny aspects of the earth around us. And when they did that, it now came down to a matter of utility. No longer did I look at a forest or a tree and have great imaginings of what it could be, or the magic in the air, the fantasy of it. Now it's about utility. I can only see a tree and see paper or see lumber. And consequently, that's affecting us and our psyche. We've done this now for so long. This scientific enlightenment and scientific revolution changed our view on the world, our worldview, sterilized the earth, desouled it, ripped out its soul, tore it to shreds. And then it's also slowly been tearing us to shreds, because this look towards the earth from a lens of utility has now shifted towards us as humans. You wonder why depression and anxiety are higher and more rampant today than they've ever been? It's because our worldview has been made to be one of utility. If the objective world outside of us is solely based on utility. It was only a matter of time before that shifted to our subjective world, meaning our personal view of the world, and our personal view, or the view of us as a person towards everybody else. So no longer do particulars, individual things, have value, essential value. It's only based on utility and desire. So for me to be desirable to you, I either have to have great utility, I have to give you something, there's got to be something you get out of it, or I have to have sexual attraction, I have to be a sex object. There's going to be some type of desire. Only by my inner subjectivity, meaning only by my inner definition of my worth, which is hard to find for anybody because of what we're taught, what we're educated with, and how the world treats us. So only can I find value by that subjective view, or by the view of the world around me. And the world around me only is going to view me from a utilitarian standpoint. What utility do I bring? Otherwise it's what attraction do I bring, or what fear do I bring? Very limiting, and it's hurting us psychologically. It's also hurting our world. That's the same way we look at the earth. And you wonder why there's this desire for a global catastrophe, or there's this push to say that there's a global catastrophe, and then these people that are protesting, or the Greta Thunbergs of our day, are angered that they can't get a politician, let alone a common man, to care. But when you realize how our minds have been affected, how our worldviews have been affected, it doesn't make any sense to me to even ask for them to care. We've been told there is no magic or desire or value in the world around us other than the utility you can find in it in the moment. Maybe you're thinking I'm being too sentimental with the earth, the world around us, imagination, fantasy, seeing value in it. I'm only coming to this hypothesis based on ancient knowledge. The Greeks, their word for the cosmos was more closely related to aesthetics, meaning how external things looked. They viewed aesthetics and beauty and the world as beautiful as an essential exercise of our hearts. See, to the Greeks, the ancient Greeks, the soul resided not in our mind, and that's in a lot of ways, or in our gut. In a lot of ways, the West and modern man finds their soul resting in one of those two places, either the mind, their intellect, their consciousness, or their gut feeling, emotions. But to the Greeks, the soul rested, and to most ancient man actually, the more I study ancient Egyptians as well, the soul rested in the heart. And I don't mean that with the sentimental, what I feel is correct, emotional side of the heart, but the loving, value-seeking, intimate part of the heart. They had this connection with the world. Cosmos to them was aesthetics, was beauty. So when the scientific revolution happened, this enlightenment happened to us, these people, these Cartesian thinkers, the scientific rationalists, helped the murder of the world's soul. And they cut it into pieces, and they severed the ties it had with the human heart's natural inclination to feel and to love and to seek beauty, and to seek value, and we sought those values. The ancient man sought those values in the fantasy and the imaginations of their hearts, in the bringing alive. They literally brought to life, sometimes quite literally, with spirits inside the trees, or spirits inside nature. They brought it to life, the world around them. And we severed those ties. We sterilized it, made it blank, made it a textbook definition. And you're frickin' surprised? They made it into a dead world of objective facts. And we can no longer sense. The ancient Greeks thought that was an essential part of our heart, was to sense, to feel, to sense, to be sensual with the world around us, with the humans around us, with the souls around us. We can't sense anymore. And to sense penetratingly, to sense well, you have to be able to imagine. And to imagine accurately, we have to sense. But we're not taught that anymore. There's no need for imagination in this scientifically rationalistic world. There's no need for things unseen. There's no need for things that can't be explained underneath the cap of the scientific enlightenment. Things that can't be quantified, things that can't be made into data, things that can't be defined. There's no need for those things. So they say. We've taken over the world around us and we've made it subjective. We made it dead, we made it cold, and we sanitized it. And then we've taken over and we project our own feelings and our own subjective views onto the world. You know this in the sense of, well, it's most primarily seen when someone asks you how a car ride was. How was your ride over here? How was the ride? How was the drive? And you answer, terrible. It sucked. It was depressing. It was long. But those are all adjectives that describe your state of being in the car and your state of being now on the end of the ride. You didn't talk about how the ride was either bumpy or loud or smooth. You didn't talk about the car ride. So every day we conquer and possess the world around us in our own language, in our own selfish views. And that's just a minute example of what we've done to the world. But the world is sick and the world does have a soul. And it's connected to all of us. And when we start to ensoul the world around us more, I think you'll start to see the change and the love and the care that needs to go to our world. But these fanatic, religious, climate catastrophe advocators are skipping a massive step. And in a lot of ways, I don't know that they necessarily even know why they feel the way they do, let alone how to make another person feel that and sympathize with them. I sure as heck don't. I'm the one talking about putting soul back in the world, but I watch these people, these climate protesters, and the Greta Thunbergs of the day, and all I see is hypocrisy, and all I see is irony as they protest and twerk in the middle of the streets, and then get back in their cars and drive to work the next day. Fix your own room. Fix your own house before you try to set the world in order. And I think part of fixing our own rooms right now is the room of your soul and how it relates to the soul of the world. I'm ready to fight for the soul of the world again, to see it, but it requires imagination and it requires fantasy. Two things that are mildly misunderstood, mildly ill-practiced, mildly ill-taught. I'm in the education system now as a teacher. We don't talk about character. We don't talk about developing imagination. Kids can hardly read today. Reading requires imagination. It requires you to look at words and translate them into images in the mind. That is imagination. Image in nation. Imagination. I think the climate issues, the global catastrophe stuff, is looking at all the wrong things. You want to fix the world, you want to save it, you got to beautify it again. We got to ensoul it again. We got to fight for its soul again. Not fight each other, not fight over policy, not protest. Create to critique, and start by creating beauty.